own page. And I think that's really helpful because you may be asking yourself, well, what is a better fit for me? Health information management or health services administration? This is when you can go to that program page, you can get an overview, see the learning outcomes, contact information for the faculty so you can follow up with them for additional questions. But also that's where you can view the curriculum. On the right-hand side, you'll see a button that you can click and take a look at the actual classes that are being offered within the program, because that will help the determination of whether or not this is a program that meets your academic and career goals. Now, the number one question I get asked about is, of course, transfer credit. You have earned credits. You have worked hard for the credit. You definitely want to see that credit transfer over. So here's the good news. SPS will take up to 105 credits. It is the most transfer credit friendly institution, not only that I've ever worked for, but I've ever seen within higher ed. It is entirely possible that if you're transferring in up to 105 credits, you may be with us as few as 1 to 2 semesters, depending on if you're attending full-time or part-time. Are there other ways that you can transfer credit? Absolutely. So if you haven't heard, ring the bell, put it out there. We do offer credit for prior learning. How do we do that? So a student comes into SPS, they take a class called PLA, Prior Learning Assessment, and they work with a faculty member to create a portfolio based off the academic experiences they've had outside of the classroom. So what I mean by that typically are going to be your professional experiences. So perhaps you have only earned 30 academic credits, but you have your real estate license and you've been working in that field for several years and you have a lot of experience and documentation to support what you've done. That is something that would qualify for additional credit. You can actually earn up to 45 credits for prior learning. So if you're not sure this is a right fit for you, that's okay. That's fine. You do not have to have that information right now. This is something that would happen after you're admitted, conversations with the academic advising team, the prior learning team, although you are always welcome to reach out to them before that to let them know, here's my background. I'm trying to determine if it sounds like I'll be eligible. There's actually even an assessment on our webpage. I can go ahead, Tom, when you get a chance, pop the prior learning page into the chat as well, so everyone can go right to that if interested. In addition, credit for exams such as CLEP or Sailor. You may even have taken AP tests in high school. As long as you're able to send over the documentation for that, we will be able to determine if that's transferable credit. And again, these all happen after you've been accepted. This is not a part of the admissions process, so I don't need you to worry about that today. If you decide to enroll at SPS, if you are admitted and you want to join us, then yes, you definitely want to make sure that you are getting all of this in. And then finally, credit for ACE evaluated corporate or military training, those joint service transcripts, and so on. Now, when does this information come to you? When do you know what credit is transferring over? Okay, so once a student is admitted, we then go in, we build their record in CUNY First, which if you're not familiar with, we'll touch on later. It's where you process applications, but it is a central hub for everything you do in your CUNY journey. So we build your record for you. Then we are going to determine the transfer credits. Once your transfer credit evaluation is completed, that information is sent to your academic advisor. Your academic advisor will then send you an email to schedule a meeting. So you may already be reading ahead and see that that is a mandatory meeting. It is only mandatory coming into your first semester. So Before you can register for classes, this is a time where you will work with your academic advisor to review that transfer credit evaluation, to get your questions answered, whether they are about orientation, how many classes you should take, when are classes available, and so on. So this is a very valuable conversation, and it's important that you're having it before you register for classes, which is why it is mandatory. So that is when you receive that information. After you've been accepted, during your meeting with your academic advisor, once our transfer credit team has completed your transfer credit evaluation. Now, with that being said, if you are unsure, if you are thinking, I don't really want to apply without knowing what the transfer credit will be, I understand. Tom is already knowing what comes next. He's already pulling up, I'm sure, the transfer credit page to pop into the chat. If you want, you can register for an unofficial transfer credit evaluation before you apply to SPS. You would go in, you would click the link on the transfer credit page, send the information in that you are wanting to register. You will need to send them your transcripts, and then you will receive an unofficial transfer credit evaluation. Now, I will say this is for students that have not yet applied. These are for what we would consider pre-applicants, right? You are still considering, you have not applied yet. With the deadline being today, I do not recommend that you go through this process if you are considering spring, because I don't want you to miss out on potentially being admitted for spring because you're waiting on an unofficial transfer credit evaluation. But I also think there's some of you in the room that are not thinking about spring. You might be thinking about fall. You're still undecided. If that's the case, this is definitely an option for you because you have a lot of time. If you're wanting to come for spring, I would bypass this unofficial and go ahead and submit the application. Chris, this sounds great. It's online. I'm loving it. There's a program. How do we make this happen? In order to qualify for admission, you must have earned at least 24 credits from a regionally accredited college or university. If you are from one of our academic partners, such as Empower or Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, or you are through one of our professional partners through InStride, you'll note that there is a different academic credit threshold. If you have questions about your eligibility, just let us know. But traditionally speaking, 24 college credits from a regionally accredited college or university. If you attended CUNY, SUNY, any public college or university, they would be regionally accredited. If you attended a private school, the large majority are regionally accredited. Some are not. But I don't need you to worry about this. If we have determined that it is not regionally accredited, we will reach out and let you know. You must have demonstrated basic proficiency in reading, writing, and mathematics. Similar to the accreditation issue, if we get your application and we are not able to see that you've demonstrated that, we will let you know. Not anything that you need to worry about when you're submitting, but basically the majority of our students have demonstrated that in their former college classes. So think about that English 101 that you took or your entry-level math course. You may have satisfied it previously with SAT or ACT test scores or Regent scores or so on. But if there's any questions, we will flag that for you. You must have maintained an overall minimum cumulative GPA of 2.5. Now, cumulative is a key word in this phrase. If you have attended multiple colleges, we are going to recalculate your GPA to get that cumulative GPA. Now, sometimes this can work in your favor. Sometimes it cannot, just depending on your academic history. I do want to take a moment to highlight that we are humans that read your application. We are not robots. So if I see that a student attended college right out of high school 10 years ago and didn't do so well academically, and then went back to school 2 years ago and has been knocking it out of the park, but maybe that low GPA from 10 years ago is still bringing their GPA down. I will recognize that. These are all things that I take into consideration when I'm reviewing an application. If you have questions about that, of course, you can reach out to us. We can talk about it. If you know that your application, if you know that your GPA, is below 2.5, then you may be an excellent fit for our Jumpstart program. For Jumpstart, it is an alternative application. It is not a separate program at SPS. It has nothing to do with classes or financial aid or advising. But if you have below that 2.5, you may be able to submit a Jumpstart application that focuses on writing, that focuses on your professional and civic experiences, similar to what we were discussing earlier with the prior learning assessment. I'm going to ask Tom, if he hasn't already, to go ahead and put a link in the chat to our Jumpstart page. If you are thinking, Chris, I don't know a lot about Jumpstart, you didn't give a ton of detail, but I do think that I qualify for it based off my GPA, the first step is going to be going to this Jumpstart interest page and letting us know so that we can reach out and give you some additional information. I will say, if this feels like the right fit for you, please don't wait. Please do that as soon as possible. With our deadlines coming up, with deadlines being today, I don't want you to miss out on the spring semester because you waited to submit a Jumpstart application and then the deadline has passed. And then finally, and this again is a requirement for SPS, is a personal statement of at least 250 words. I recommend that when you submit your application in CUNY first, you go ahead and upload the personal statement at the same time, but you don't have to, especially because I'm telling you the deadline is today and you want to apply, but you're thinking, I don't have time to write a personal statement today. You know, I have to go to work in a couple of hours. I get it. You can upload it at a later date. You can also email it to us. If you email it, just make sure to include your first name, your last name, your date of birth, or your EMPL ID so that we can make sure we are attaching it to the right application.